Hey everyone, I'm Scott Stokely, and this is Outside the Circle with Scott Stokely. I was going to call it Outside the Circle with me, but then if they search for that, anyways, it probably wouldn't work. I'm here with Luke and Derek, my co-hosts, my partners, the brains behind the operation. Is that fair to say?
There's a couple cells missing, but yeah.
Yeah, somewhere.
um, yeah, I this is we'll do a real quick intro, which bores the heck out of everybody. Then we'll get to the good stuff. But this is something that I've been excited to do for a while, is to find the right people to do a much more professional presentation. This is basically how Sports Center got started 30 years ago without the internet.
Right. Yeah.
So we are going to be incredibly mainstream famous because of this show someday. But this first one, like 9 people are going to watch. So who cares?
Yeah. Nine
But
people and like my mom. So hey, mom.
Yeah,
yeah,
hi mom.
9 people, and I probably can draw an additional 8. So
Right.
there, we're
Yeah.
good.
Perfect.
But real quick, Luke and Derek, do we guys want to just introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. Derek D-Dub Weibel. Been in the sport of disc golf now for I want to say 2 or 3 years. Pretty heavy. Been doing this awesome podcast, C1 in the Morning with Luke. Got about 7 or 8 episodes out now. Had the great opportunity to kind of get involved with none other than Scott Stokely himself. So super stoked about that. But we're really just kind of stoked to kind of get this thing going. And I'll pass it over to Luke for our sports and weather, bro.
Yeah. So weather. I mean, we live in Michigan, and the weather is just now getting good. So we're just now getting able to play. So we've been just kind of locked in the basement, getting ready for this show and doing our own podcast. And it's been it's been fun, and it's been a big old learning curve.
Locked in the new studio.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm excited to be able to talk more about the Pro Tour than I already do every day in my entire life. So,
Beautiful. And you guys are in the not the UP, but up in northern Michigan.
yeah.
You're far enough north where you told me the way to get to your house is you drive until you see the barbed wire compound with the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and
Yeah.
then make a left.
Yeah, when they said violators will be shot, you're in the right place.
Yep.
Well, actually, technically, I'm from Texas, so
Oh yeah, you get it
um,
too.
yes.
Yes, all the NRA
uh,
stickers slapped on the doors.
I know how can we endear ourselves to one half of the
Oh
audience
no.
simultaneously
There it
not
is.
making the other half not like us. So we're gonna put NRA stickers, bumper stickers on our cars, but we're gonna hate that they're there.
Right, but it's only going to be like a 93 silica just falling apart.
Right?
Low
Actually, I'll tell you
emissions,
a
low
real funny
emissions.
story. It's gonna be a lot of history in this. I hope people are interested in that. But I think I told you guys the first ever flying disc tournament was in Michigan.
Yeah, you were telling
Yeah.
us that one time. It was up in the UP, right?
It was up in the Upper Peninsula. It was
Yeah.
the Healy brothers' birthday party. This is in the late 50s. I think the what year might be debated maybe, but they had at their birthday party. They were up there in the Upper Peninsula. I hate the stereotype, but let's just say probably drinking. Um, Please, Oopers, don't get mad at me if you.
It's not a stereotype if it's true.
Okay. And by the way, I can make jokes about people from the Upper Peninsula because I have a friend from the Upper Peninsula. But they had a birthday party, and at the birthday party they came up with this game, which was let's throw a frisbee back and forth at each other as hard as we can, and if you catch it, you get a point, and if you can't catch it, the other team gets a point, and if you get hit in the face, everyone laughs, and that would take a lot of guts to play, and they named their game Guts. And next year at the birthday party, they played Guts again, and then they played Guts again, and it became then people started showing up for it and coming to it that didn't know the Healy brothers, and it became the International Frisbee Championships. It's the longest running flying disc tournament in the sport now. But our origin story is playing Guts in the Upper Peninsula.
Piece of
Yeah,
history there,
that's
man.
awesome. I'll tell you, like Michigan has great disc golf. I'm not to toot our own horn, but I feel like it's kind of underrated because you only see the pros go up as far as uh, Toboggan, which is 3.5 hours south of us. Like you don't see very many pros besides like Marweed come up this far north. Uh, Only because he's from Alpena. So
Yeah, he's from this way.
yeah, so uh, we have an abundance of disc golf courses, an abundance of beautiful disc golf courses that I feel like are just unknown gems.
Hmm. Oh well, I mean, so I've been around, forever since 1976. I played my first round, and for decades, I mean, there were practically people with like pitchforks standing in front of parks trying to keep courses from going in the ground. Certainly, there were no cities or very few cities or states that wanted courses in. I mean, people had to fight to get the first 1,000 courses in, probably.
Right.
Michigan is really the first place where the state park system embraced the sport. They loved that people were using the land. I think Jim Kenner and Discraft were probably the largest players in this.
For sure.
But the culture in Michigan became, hey, we have a state park. It's huge. It's beautiful. And this will allow people to enjoy nature where everywhere else at that time, now this is probably not, going back into the 90s, uh, but everywhere else they said, oh, they're going to destroy the nature because they're going to, I don't know what they're thinking, but they didn't want us. I know that. And the Michigan State Parks were like, no, this is a great multi-use, a great use of the land. It's not just about hiking. So yeah, Michigan
Yeah.
was a pioneer in a lot of ways.
And we're one of those states where I think it's you're never more than 2 hours away from a Great Lake. And I think you're never more than maybe 15 minutes away from any kind of water source. So like you have all these disc golf courses that have great views of different water sources around the area. So it's I know the people that live around here know about it, but I feel like
Mhm.
besides maybe Flip City in Shelby, like a lot of the courses up this way don't get as much as recognition as they should.
Yeah, like Bears Den, Kingsley,
Mm-hmm.
Green Lake. Avery Jenkins actually designed and put in Green Lake up in Interlochen, Michigan.
About 2 years ago.
Yeah, one of the most favorite, just frustratingly difficult pound my forehead against a pine tree type of courses, because it is just like, you hear it's like, man, I want some par fours. Where are the par fours at? Like, man, where are the par fives at? Like, I want something I could juice. And it's almost like Avery walked into the middle of the woods and he stared down this 850-foot corridor of just straight trees and was like, there's your par four.
There's your par four, boys.
There's your par four. 850 foot, dead straight through the trees. There's your par four.
It's tough, but it's fair. Like, I mean, if you just gotta shoot well. You gotta stay in the fairway. If you're not in the fairway, you're gonna have a rough time.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, I do want to just go back a second.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you're never more than 30 minutes from a water source in Michigan. And I think that's awesome that you guys have come so far with that. Back in Colorado, you literally in your house could turn a faucet and the water comes to you. I mean, you guys will get there. But hats off to you for being, a half an hour trek. Probably carry the water on your heads.
Oh yeah, it's over the shoulders, 2 buckets.
So I want to. We have a sponsor for the show.
Oh,
Wow,
excellent.
heck yeah.
We do, and I need to announce our sponsor, and the sponsor is me
Oh,
for this particular episode. I have a new tour series disc at scottstokely.net, and it is the most unique disc in my tour series collection. It is the Baobab from AGL. And by the way, you got to love the set. I'm going to be remote every single week in a different location. So if that looks like a hotel room door, that is absolutely the best I could do in this. We're in a hotel room in Japan, which is really small. But the Baobab is. I want to make this a family-friendly show, so I'm going to try to phrase this correctly. But if a tilt and a berg did a special mommy daddy hug. This is
uh,
this is what they would give birth to. It is the most overstable disc. And by the way, if you've thrown a stego, there's similarities to a stego. Uh, but it's basically like that. It is the most overstable, extremely slow, barely a mid-range disc. It's so overstable that 96% of the throws on the course you would never use this disc for. In fact, you would say it's a terrible disc for those 96% of throws. But for the 4% of the time where you need to make an incredibly sharp turn and you're not throwing it very far, this disc does things that no other disc does. I've always said that the same thing about the tilt. It's like the tilt isn't a good disc at all, but everybody should have one in their bag because it does things that no other disc in the world does, which
right.
means there will be shots where the tilt was the disc for it. That's what the Baobab is. So ScottStokely.net, the most overstable mid-range. I hate the term mid-range. It doesn't fly as far as doesn't fly as far as half the putters out there, but it's probably a mid-range disc. But anyway, ScottStokely.net, check it out. The Baobab. I love it.
Yeah, above ground level AGL. They're pretty awesome.
Oh,
They
they're such a great company. Every time you buy one of these, the trees get planted, and like it's a very, I don't know. It's just a cool company with cool people running it, and they have the incredibly loyal fan base because of the like that positive energy they put into the world. I'm a big fan of AGL, but I don't throw the disc because I'm a fan of them. I could care less about that. I throw this because I score better because I have this disc for certain shots.
absolutely
All
they
right, enough to be advertising.
Yeah, the one thing I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, AGL, they a percentage of all of their plastic is recycled plastics, correct?
I don't want to misquote. I believe so, but don't. If I'm wrong,
I
I
know
don't
that
want to.
they
I don't.
make
For sure.
specific discs that are completely recycled plastics. I just don't
Right.
know if that's the case for all of their
Yeah, and
plastics, but
that's why I don't want to misquote. It wouldn't surprise me if that's their thought process.
yeah, super awesome company for sure. Anyway,
So, what is happening in the world of disc golf? We don't have any tournaments this weekend. I mean, we're going to be recording our show immediately following the Disc Golf Pro Tour event.
Yep.
I'm over here I'm in Japan right now. I'm in Osaka.
Oh,
It's
nice.
hard to keep track. You're looking at 80% of my hotel room is this little area behind me. By the way, I mean the rooms they're really small.
oh yeah,
Um, by the way, the bed, I'm 6'7", 2 meters. Um, I cannot lay. Well, most beds, my feet hang off the bed,
Right.
but when my head is touching the wall on one side, my feet hang off the bed and touch the wall on the other side of the room, and I cannot completely lay straight and fit in the room. So the room is less than 2 meters wide.
that's
Wow.
hilarious.
Wow. I don't know what
It
that's
is.
like. I'm not even 6 foot, so I'm pretty sure I'd be like, wow, there's so much room in here.
Oh, there's restaurants here in Japan where I've Japan. There's one in Bangkok we went to where if I have to tilt my head like this
Actually, I
to
think I see
stand
a
up.
picture on your Instagram of you doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I just literally don't fit in the room. By the way, this has been the other challenge for me. I can't. I there. I can't buy shoes or pants in Asia, and I've been in Asia for like 5 weeks
Oh,
now,
wow. I didn't even think of that.
or 5 weeks, 5 months. Sorry, 5 months, and I bought the only pair of size 13 shoes I found, and I had to. I mean, it took me forever to find. And pants, forget it. Like I gave up trying. So it's been cold here in Japan, and I've been wearing shorts, and there's no options.
They're big and tall stores only go up to 30 long.
I think so. Yeah, I don't I don't fit, but it's fun. If you ever get a chance to travel around, well, any type of traveling international, there's great experiences everywhere. Um, I was all over Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia. unbelievable experience there. Now I'm in Japan, which is completely different.
Right.
Japan is to Southeast Asia, they're Asian, but that's about where the similarity ends. I mean, India and Iran and Russia are also Asian,
Right. Yeah.
but they're not like Southeast Asia, right? Well, Japan is just as different from the rest of Southeast Asia. If you ever get to come here, it is a wild experience. I mean, you want a country of, I don't know the population, 150, 200 million, something like that,
Right.
uh, of every single person in the country lives under this code of respect and coexisting with the people around you and being polite. And like the way the culture works here, it's not enforced by laws, it's enforced by culture. Just the rules that everybody follows to coexist. I mean, I think 37 million people live in Tokyo. Without people cooperating,
Right.
like it would be chaos here. And instead, everybody cooperates and just follows the rules, and it flows. It's you really have to see it. It's amazing.
Right. It's almost not now, not to compare them, but it's almost like an ant colony. How you have hundreds of thousands of ants, but they all seem to be able to work together for one common goal and be able
Yeah,
to.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, like look, you're getting off the subway,
Yeah.
and when you get off the subway, there's an escalator going up, and 100% of people that are not walking on the escalator stand on the right side. So there's room on the left side for the occasional person that's in a hurry.
Oh, right.
And
Nice.
when I emphasized 100%, because if 95% of people cooperate, the system fails.
Right.
All it takes is one person blocking and no longer works. But it's not 95%; it's 100%. And you see that everywhere else. It's really great. Now, as far as disc golf, all the disc golf audience was just about to tune out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, the disc golf here, it's no longer 150 class. That's
Yeah. I heard they lifted
for
that
years.
a few years ago.
Yeah. For decades, you could only throw under 150-gram discs
Hmm.
in all of Japan. They did away with that, but there's courses popping up everywhere. But it's there's a problem with finding land in the cities. Like there's no land in Osaka to put a course in,
Right.
so the courses go outside of the city. One of the challenges. I'm going to go back in time, a little history again. But disc golf courses for years and years were always in multi-use areas. And you would put the disc golf course in a public park, and you would throw around swing sets and picnic areas and picnic tables and parking lots, which is the worst place you could possibly put a course in. However, if you didn't put it there, nobody would see the game being played and nobody would play. You couldn't put it at a nice course up in the mountains.
Right.
Like it would be invisible. So it had to be in an area that got exposure. Then later on, we figured out, hey, that's a terrible place for a course. It's not safe. Usually the best land happens to be out in the woods anyways. And the courses move that way. But we had to get exposure first. And so a lot of the places in Japan, I feel like are struggling with that same issue. How do you get exposure without putting the course where there's people, but there isn't the land to do it? And the park space they have, when I say multi-use, it's impossible to put a course in the amount of people that share this open space.
Right.
Like it's a challenge, but they're doing it. They're getting there. The courses are going in all the time.
Right. It'd be like
The
trying to
level of
throw a
play
disc
is
in Times
good.
Square.
What?
It'd be almost like trying to throw a disc in Times Square and not hit anybody.
It is. And golf discs, modern golf discs are, they're like, you don't want to get hit. You definitely don't want to get hit in the head with a disc.
Right.
That's
Which
known as a professional segue,
that's a
by the way.
segue, ladies and gentlemen, which we've seen this year it was the Open at Austin, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Open at Austin.
Yeah.
In case
Tough
anybody
course.
hasn't seen it, we can play it actually
Tough
right
course.
here.
Quick clip.
See Eagle wanting to go over the top with a grenade, which I mean the cameraman wasn't ready for because everyone's been using the gap, but
Yeah. I mean, he was in
right
good position.
there, and it was
He was in such good, he was in good position. And I think we had probably slightly touched on this at one point. I genuinely don't think that cameraman had any idea in the world that Eagle was throwing over the top of those trees.
No. He would have been out of the way for any other shot coming down the tunnel.
Oh, for sure.
So he was doing his job right. So it's really nobody's fault. Eagle has the ability to throw a grenade that high, and so he went with it. And well, things happen.
Well, we saw
sometimes.
that play from more than one person that weekend. That was if you got caught too tight on that hole. That was really like the only play you had without just pitching up to the opening of the tunnel and then needing to throw down the tunnel. But you for sure were taking a stroke if you were going to pitch to the tunnel.
Yeah, I think Kevin Jones actually did that one of the rounds as well.
Yep.
Because he throws grenades all the time. Kind of one of the guys that popularized it on tour, honestly.
Oh, he didn't just popularize it. That is Kevin Jones owns that shot.
Yeah.
Patented.
There's never been a player in the history of the game that throws the grenade as well as Kevin Jones. Like there's not even a second place in the category. And by the way, Eagle's really, really good at it.
Yeah.
But that's KJ all over it. Yeah, no, it's unfortunate that someone got hurt. It's by the way, I haven't heard much on this front, but my biggest fear was there would be some overreaction to it. This is a very I can't speak for the rest of the world, but it's a very American thing to react to everything.
Right.
If someone gets hurt, number one, who's at fault? Like someone had to be at fault. And then number two, how can we prevent it happening again? Like, should we put bubble wrap around every single spectator because a spectator got hit with a disc? And there are people that would be like, well, you have to, because and I don't know, maybe I'm just showing my age. I was raised in the 70s. Accidents happen, and it's unfortunate. I'm glad he's okay. I'm not a hypocrite. I would have the same opinion if it happened to me, but I don't think there's any need to react. Now you can maybe learn from something and say, hey, in the future, maybe you radio ahead or something like that. But Eagle didn't do anything wrong.
No.
When I tee off, I'm aware of the fairway. I'm aware of spectators. I'm aware of camera people. But they also need to be on the course, and they need to be there. And nobody's perfectly moving every single person. Hey, cameraman, step 2 feet so you're behind the tree because I'm throwing a 30-degree hyzer angle, and if you take 2 feet to the left, the tree will block you. And like that's just not the way it works. And so yeah, it's an accident. Like, accidents happen, and I'm glad he's okay. But I hope they don't change anything.
I haven't heard anything on that front. I was fully expecting to. I was expecting the Disc Golf Pro Tour would have to come out with some kind of press conference, like the safety of our cameraman is at our utmost importance, and so forth. We're just
everybody erupts, and then the very next Pro Tour event, they're all wearing bright highlighter yellow hard hats
and
oh God!
Pads.
Even when you were showing this clip, like in my mind, when that clip came up, I'm expecting to hear you say, "Now I need to give you all a trigger warning."
Oh no!
Oh, I know that. You guys are from Michigan. I get it. But it's like, come on, like back down. Like it's okay. Someone got hit. It sucks. It sucks for him. He got hurt. It sucks for Eagle because no one wants to. I mean, Eagle's a great guy. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. But accidents happen.
It's definitely not the most gruesome thing I've seen during a sporting event, so it can't be that bad.
That's true.
No, there's been worse. Hey, a quick aside on this. One of the reasons why New Zealand has, like, why they invented bungee jumping and why they have zorbing and why they have all these crazy extreme sports is they have something in New Zealand called a no-fault law.
Right.
And what a no-fault law is, it basically means when you do something, you understand there's a risk to doing that thing. It might be a small risk, but there's a risk. If you bungee jump in New Zealand from a reputable bungee jump company, you understand as an adult, or if you're signing off on your kid, I suppose.
Right.
But you understand that you're jumping off a bridge with a rubber band tied to your ankle. And as long as there wasn't negligence, as long as the company making the bungee cord followed protocol, as long as the people attaching the bungee cord weren't drunk on the job, as long as everybody's best intent was to keep you safe, if an accident happens, you cannot sue
Right.
because
Yeah.
you're like you're a grown up. You took a risk. Now, if there was negligence, that becomes a criminal matter because the person working at the bungee cord uh, or at the bungee facility has a responsibility to people's safety and they must do their best. But that's a criminal thing. Now, because you can't sue, it means that companies can afford to do these things because they don't have to purchase this extremely expensive
Right.
liability insurance
Right.
because they're going to get sued for $1 million every 3 years, um, which basically rules out like half the fun stuff in the world. And it's really like I couldn't agree with it anymore. Like accidents happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at some point, you got to stop trying to protect everyone and allow them to get hurt to learn never do that again.
Yeah, like I mean, come on. Like if you're a kid, like I feel bad for the kid that's never broken a bone
Oh, right.
playing.
Yeah.
Like, come on, like that's it's
Yeah.
not fun. I mean, I'll cry. But if my daughter had broken a bone, I would cry about it, but I wouldn't want her to not do the thing that caused it.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if she told like if my daughter came home one day when she was younger and our her mom called and said she broke her leg because she jumped off the roof, I would be a proud father that day. I would be. I'd be like, good, I did it. We all did it.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
stupid.
Lesson learned.
You'll be
Lesson
driving her
learned.
to the hospital while going, "What was it cool though? Because it's kind of cool, right?"
Yeah, my one time my daughter, um, she uh she saw some kids graffitiing, and she was young. She was at a park, allowed to go by herself, which is crazy in this modern world because she was I mean
Right.
10 or 12. She walked down the street to the park, her and a friend, and there were some kids like older teenage boys graffitiing on the wall, and she went and approached them and told them not to do that and they ended up splitting. I was very proud of her. Uh, her mom asked me. She goes, her mom was proud of her as well, of course, but she said the only thing that worried her was that what if the boys had hurt her, when she
Right.
confronted him. And my feeling was, I'm fine with that. Those are battle wounds that you're proud of. I mean, like if you confronted someone for doing something wrong and then got beaten up for it, like you could be proud of that for the next 60 years. It only hurts for 3 minutes.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Like so I'm not I don't have a problem with accidents or things happening. I'm not, but again, I'm dating myself. If I was born 20 years later, I might I would probably feel differently. But in the 70s, we were latchkey kids.
I
Different
mean,
game. Different game back then.
I mean, it's
Different
even
game.
different now from when we were kids. I'm a few years older than you, but I mean,
Couple.
even you can't fight in school or anything like that like you used to.
Gotten my few fair share of those.
Yeah. At some
I
point,
mean,
I think the
I
culture
had
will
the
change.
luxury of being able to, like at 12, 13, 14 years old, being able to like just ride my BMX bike, like just across the city of Jackson, like to the complete opposite side of town to go to the comic book store or, things like that, or the skate park that was across town, or we'd ride our bikes across town to go to the pool, stuff like that. But, no, for sure. I definitely get what you're saying. So in the fact that we did not necessarily have a disc golf pro tour elite event or anything like that over this last weekend, they did have the throw down the mountain,
Yes.
which was kind of an interesting play out. I think who took first in MPO?
Paul McBeth took first in MPO.
He was not in first there for a little bit.
You're right, but I mean, he's never lost the tournament. So every time he plays it, he wins it. So you kind of have to bet on Paul.
You have a Paul McBeth fangirl
And
over here.
I mean, it's his course now. Him and Dylan Cease bought the course for $1.2 million. It was a temporary course that was only up for a few weeks before and after the tournament, kind of like Toboggan used to be. And
Toboggan still kind of is. It's
yeah,
not open year round, or even half the year. It's only open for like 2 months, 3 months.
if that, yeah,
I think less.
yeah.
Yeah.
But now they're turning the whole facility into a permanent disc golf course. That's you can come play year round. And what a way to be like, I own this now, than by winning the tournament again. I own
Right.
this in two ways now.
Well, what's amazing now is we live at a time when you can actually monetize the sport in a way.
Right.
No, you're not just in purchasing the land. As long as you have equity in the land equal to what you purchased, technically you didn't spend any money on it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and if it appreciates, you make money off just the real estate, right? But along with that comes the fact that you can make money doing disc golf now in so many different ways. It's just awesome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to technically do well in tournaments anymore to make a living playing disc golf.
Mm-mm.
As long as you have a personality that people enjoy watching. I mean, not to call anybody out, but like look at Zach Melton. People love Zach Melton. He's a huge personality in the sport. He's got a huge following because of it, but you don't see him top 20, top 25 on these tournaments. But I know he's
No,
making a good living playing disc golf.
there's so many ways to make money in the sport. It's shall I shall I go off on a rant here?
Let's hear it.
Send it.
All right. Like I don't play for prize money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I give away all my prize money. I just announced to celebrate Autism Awareness Month for the third year in a row. I'm giving away prize money. Now, in all fairness, it wasn't a lot of prize money. I've only given away of my earnings only about $15,000 in the last 2 years, which isn't nothing, but big picture, it's not a lot of money. But prize money is not really important to me. You can earn far more money in so many different ways. It's you got to be willing to work. That's the thing is playing disc golf is fun. The work part isn't as much fun, but that's where your money's at. So I was actually thinking about this just the other day, and I'm kind of blowing my own mind here when I think about this. But in the last 3 years, just the last 3 years, I wrote a book. I taught 1,200. I'm going to pull up a picture. I've taught 1,200 private lessons. I taught countless clinics and countless seminars around the country. In addition to my 1,200 private lessons, this is. Oh, I think I just made the computer
Yeah,
froze.
little bit of freezing, but we're good. We're back.
All right. So that is Google Map telling me where I went in 2020 and 2021,
Wow.
just in the U.S.
Sheesh.
But in addition to teaching the seminars and the clinics all over the country, 1,200 private lessons, I opened an online store. I got 10 tour series discs, barbecue sauce, golf carts, a clothing line. I teach an online class. I got a documentary coming out. I got a phone game coming out. Uh, I got 3 people out there teaching seminars for me.
Right.
There's
New tour
there's
series
so many
discs.
ways to monetize the sport, but it's work. You gotta do the work. Like nothing's gonna be handed to you,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, you gotta. That's kind of it's a hard thing because it's not the fun part. I mean, I want to look. I would like to just play disc golf, but I also want to be able to retire someday as
Right.
well. So
Yeah.
it's a it's the way it works.
Right.
But yeah,
So, uh, kind of moving on. So we were talking about the Open at Austin with
yeah,
Eagle, and Gannon Burr actually was the one taking that down this time, getting his first Elite Series win. Now he had a Silver Series and a Major. Some people call a
No,
Major an Elite Series, but
no.
his
So
first
see,
major.
and
Go
and
ahead.
this is maybe just some inside banter amongst friends that I kind of slightly overheard. Um, Alden Harris kindly reminds Gannon that he does not have a regular major win. He has
Is
an
an X
X major
Major.
win. He does not have a standard major win yet.
Semantics. It's a major.
Totally semantics, but like if it was me and you, like if we had that, like I would pull semantics on you in that situation.
And I would deny it vehemently.
So, but you would pull it on me too.
Yeah, just to make you feel.
But yeah, definitely shout out to Gannon Burr. He played phenomenal that final round.
He may never lose again.
No, probably not. He's so good, and it
But by the
boggles
way,
me
I
that
say
he's.
that I just insulted every other player on tour by saying that. So let me
Yeah.
retract that. Um, I mean, there's so many good. There's 50 players out there that can win on a given weekend, but I mean, in fact, Gann is not even the top player in the world right now, right? So, but when I watch him play, I just like every time he throws a bad shot, I'm surprised by it. I'm never like, oh, he's people throw bad shots. Every time he does, I'm like, what just happened?
Right.
You know, it reminds me, honestly, it reminds me of Paul in that way. I mean, he's got obviously a long ways to go before he's in that conversation.
Right.
But when Paul doesn't play well, you're like what just happened? Like, because that's how good Paul is, and that's how I feel when Gannon plays. Like, I don't ever expect him to have a bad day.
Right. And it was one of those things. So it's like, it might have been. So I wasn't following the sport when Paul came into the sport, when he started making his way up. Also, there wasn't as much coverage back then, so you really couldn't follow his way up anyway. But because when I started paying attention to professional disc golf, Paul already had four world championships, right? Because he went 4 in a row, and then Ricky won a couple, and then Barsby was in there once, and then, but anyways, and then he got his 5th in 2019. But so like, you kind of just knew that he had done these amazing things, but he wasn't like, didn't feel like he just popped up. To me, Gannon feels like he just popped up. He was always good, and I remember seeing him on the lead card at Waco in 2020 when Nico won. But like, you just, all of a sudden, he was just amazing. You didn't get to see him come up through the ranks because, I don't know, you don't really get to see coverage of amateur world championships and junior worlds and all that kind of stuff. So like, seeing him at 17 years old taking down majors and elite series, you're like, who the heck is this guy? You know, and he went from being like 6 foot to damn near 7 foot. It seems like he's so tall. And you're just like, this guy is a freak of nature, and there's no way he's going to get any worse. He's only going to get better.
I will contribute, and this is just my 2 cents here, whether you not or you want it. I can partially contribute to the fact that he is so good so young is why it kind of feels like he just popped up.
It's fair.
Like he's 17 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, because the whole
we didn't
lawsuit
necessarily start
minor.
seeing Paul Macbeth start popping off till his mid 20s.
Well, he won his first world championship he's the same age as me. This is why I can keep track. If he won it in 2012, he was 22 years old.
Okay, so 20s, but we're seeing Gannon kind of playing at this caliber at 17, so it kind of feels like he's just popped up out of the middle of nowhere because he's right now at the age where it makes the most sense for him with his skill set to be playing in these super high level competitions.
But on the contrary, I would say his skill set is much above any other 17-year-old, maybe
100%.
besides like a Cole Redolin.
Yeah.
That it's a beautiful thing to watch, and like, you just hope that it's one of those things where you watch someone young in a sport who's really good, that you hope they don't get burned out with it, because I mean, it's just how it is. Other things happen in life, and other things take a backseat, and sometimes they choose a different path. Like, I want to see Gannon keep going, and I want to see what he's like at Paul's age at 33, like how many majors, how many championships that he can potentially rack up, because he has all this time yet to do so.
That's a scary thought. What's your thought process on that, Scott?
It's I think scary is the right word, and I feel like Cole has as much talent as Gannon. He's just he's like Cole's career is basically he's just not where Gannon is yet.
Right.
But talent wise, I don't really see much of a difference there. Although at the highest level, the differences can be so slight. But Cole has all the skills. Cole's going to be a rock star. Cole's going to be a world champion. Gannon's going to be a world champion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the way it's supposed to work. You have a spectrum of ages when people get good, and there's going to be the young phenoms, and there's going to be people that peak in their late 20s. We see that in every sport. We see people, late in their careers and early in their careers, and some people for their whole careers, which is the ones who put up the career numbers.
Right.
Um, but I mean, the wave of young people, you know,
It's insane. It's
it's
insane.
insane. It's exciting for me because the sport is just continuing to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
It evolves at higher and higher levels. Um, I like it's like I feel like a parent watching my kid grow up in a way. Just seeing it. The thing that's tough is when you have an entire field of players that are that good, numbers are going to start to decrease as far as, a 3-win season is going to be a spectacular,
Right. Yeah.
like twice a decade season in 10 years because that's just the way it works. The thing that's interesting though is there is something about the big events that the greats do differently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what that is. If I knew, I'd
Right.
probably
Yeah.
have, I might have some more wins in my career. The people like like Ken and Paul, and then of course everyone like Ricky and like obviously like Nate Doss. Like
Right.
there's something about being able to. I don't know if that they're elevating their game, but they continue to be them, and everyone else it just doesn't. I mean, like Paul's only win last year was the World Championships, I think.
And Waco
And Waco. Okay.
and the
No,
memorial,
last
if
year, no,
you
I think
count
Dickerson won
that.
Waco.
What's that?
I thought Dickerson won Waco last year.
Nope. Paul won Waco last year and the memorial, and then he didn't have anything else besides Worlds.
Okay. But yeah, I mean the idea of that Paul is still like when it's the World Championships, it's like I mean, like if like I don't care what season anyone in the sport has. When it comes to the World Championships in 2023, if I had to put my life savings on somebody, I still choose Paul.
Oh
Like
yeah,
there's
absolutely.
and it doesn't matter if someone's having a better season, if they have more wins, he's it's like it's Paul's to lose,
Right.
and this is not please. I got so many friends on tour. I'm not knocking any of you. I'm not surprised if any of you win. Like I wouldn't like when Aaron Gossage, if he had won Worlds last year, I'm not surprised at that.
Right.
Like Aaron's a rock star. He's a superstar. He's great. But at the biggest stage, like those players, there's something different. I don't know what it is. Like I said, if we could bottle it, I would buy it.
Right. I almost feel as if Paul is almost like a trophy hunter at this point. Not in the sense that he doesn't care about Elite Series as much, but when you're chasing records, like an Elite Series win isn't going to get you the same type of record as major wins. So it's like he wants to do well at normal events, but when it comes to majors, he wants that because he's trying to chase down Climo's record at the moment for the most majors. I think he's either tied or he needs one more to tie, and then he'll beat him or something like that. It's very close.
And
Yeah.
the one
Well, and in comparing those two players, there's two different things happening. There's obviously more competition today, which makes it harder to win. But
Hmm.
when Ken played, there were fewer majors and fewer opportunities.
Right.
Ken
beat you
didn't have
to it.
the USDGC until the end of the 90s.
Hmm.
If I mean, I it's hard to say, but if the USDGC existed throughout the entire 90s, there's no reason to think Ken wouldn't have won all of them. Like
Right.
won every world championships, right? And so would Ken have racked up many more majors if they had existed? Obviously. course you would have.
Right.
That's why comparing players to different eras, I hate that conversation. People ask me all the time, Ken versus Paul. It's like, how about they played at two different times and it's LeBron and Jordan.
Right. Yeah, you can't
Like, why?
compare.
Like, that doesn't take away from either one of them. They're clearly the. I mean, there's a big gap between 2 and 3. I can tell you that. And these guys are both in that same conversation, and it depends on what metric you compare them by. Is it the eyeball test, or is it the oops, my battery system connecting to power? So it's an impossible debate, but um, you know, it's fun. It's what sports is, right? Isn't that
Right.
what
Yeah.
watch sports so they can sit around in their bar stools and then they can argue over these things. And I enjoy the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'll go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
I mean, as far as I think with that debate, like you can't even do an eye test because of the disc technology is so different. They're not using the same equipment. I mean, if Paul can throw a force and Kenny just has a cobra, like you're not gonna have the same type of game. So like, can you
Well,
do the eye test really?
it's not so much the discs. It's developing your game for the courses that you played on. The players of Ken's era or before, they did not develop their games to throw 1,000-foot holes. They developed
Hmm.
their games for the courses they're playing on. So the way Ken threw was perfectly suited for the tournaments he was playing on,
Right.
which by the way, that's exactly what you're supposed to do, right? You're
Yeah.
supposed to develop your game for like I feel like my game was more suited for the modern game, which hurt me in the 90s. I got
Right.
to throw a bunch of really big, amazing shots, but when it came down to it, my skill set didn't line up with the courses. Not on purpose. I wish I had a better, I wish I could have had a more suited game, but my game was not of its time.
Hmm.
And there's players in the modern era that can't compete on the pro tour where their games were probably perfectly suited for the 90s. All you got to do is go to North Carolina and go to an MA1 tournament and
Right.
just watch how high the level of North Carolina golf is in MA1. You're talking about a lot of players that would be extremely good on 90s courses. They developed North Carolina woods golf, perfect golf for that era. That's why, like I said, comparing it is just it's apples. It's almost apples and oranges. But I also believe if people are having that conversation, it's good for the sport.
Right.
Have those debates.
Well, speaking of your game and speaking of Paul's game, you both are going to be competing on the Euro Tour this year.
Yeah, I can't
How's that for
wait.
a segue?
Yes, I like Paul. I think he's well. First off, and please nobody send him this clip. But I love watching Paul play the game.
Hmm.
This is my sport, and I'm watching like an artist at work. And when I step onto the course, I'm not thinking that at the time. He's my competition. He's the one I'm out there to beat.
Right.
But when I step away, when I watch him, I love watching the way he plays the game because it's just he's an artist. He's a master, and I enjoy that. And I also enjoy Paul. He's great for the sport. He's a great guy. I very much want to beat him. My last two tournaments, I will point out that I shot over my last two tournaments. I shot 10, I think 1027 rated over two tournaments. That is not Paul's level, obviously, but that is not so far behind where I couldn't beat him.
Right. Right.
It means he would be a heavy favorite against me. But 1027. By the way, I shot 1027. I could shoot a 1040, 1050 for an event. Absolutely. So, I'm looking forward to competing against him. I'm gonna try to make it tough for him. I'll do my best.
Right. Yeah. That was one of those things that made me think he was like a trophy hunter because I'm like, he's going over to Europe. He's playing all the events that could, if he won every single one of them, which I know it's not totally impossible, but it's gonna be hard to do still, even with the level of talent that is in Europe. It made me think like he's gonna go over and try to take the European Pro Tour Championship and then come back to United States, try to get some majors, and then maybe win some other ones. Like,
It's a great marketing opportunity, I think, even just from that, like a business mindset. It's a great marketing opportunity for him to go over there, push his brand, push the Discraft brand, especially with Discraft recently signing
KJ Nybo.
KJ Nybo, kind of continuing to push into that market a little bit. I think it's a great business decision for both Paul Macbeth and Discraft, for sure.
Absolutely. And, for me, I mean, I'm over here. It's partially a business decision as well. I mean, a big part of it for me is I want new experiences. That's why I was in Southeast Asia and Australia and New Zealand. Uh, if I remember to bring it up later, I'm hopefully we'll be going to Qatar and Saudi Arabia, and in India, Madagascar this winter. So I got a lot of plans, and in Europe is certainly a new experience as well. But promotionally, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is a massively growing market and will keep getting bigger. And to not penetrate that market with your products is, I mean, you're leaving money on the table, right? I mean, it's
Just leaving the
got it.
cards there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of all of these great players, I would just like to point out that even though Luke is a massive Paul Macbeth fangirl, we both can agree on the fact that Paul is currently not the best disc golfer in the world at this very moment.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Before I give my input or our
Yeah.
collective input, I want to know your mindset or your kind of viewpoint on this, Scott. Who currently, right now as it stands, do you view as the best disc golfer in the world?
Paul Macbeth.
Other than Paul Macbeth, okay. I was going to say
Yeah,
other than
because
yourself, because I think that's
he's the world champion. He's the world champion. And when everybody came together and said on a level playing field, we're all going to see who's the best at this time, we've designated that he's the best. I believe if you asked me if Aaron Gossage had won the world championships, who the best player in the world is, I say it's Aaron Gossage. He gets
Right.
to be the best player in the world for 12 months because he's the world champion, and I will defend that. I can simultaneously say, would you bet money on Aaron over, Calvin at the next tournament? If I was betting money, I would say no. I would put money on Calvin because he's playing the best right now.
Yeah.
But that's the title that you get when you're the world champion. You get to wear that. You get to wear the belt, the championship belt for a year. By the way, I'll say the same thing in mixed martial arts. Like, who's the best fighter in this division? Like, well, he got lucky. I don't care. Who has the belt? Hold up that belt. You got the belt. You're the best.
Right.
Calvin is playing the best right now. I think Gannon's right there. But God, I mean, it's like the field is like like you if you were betting money, you would bet money on the field over any group of two or three players for sure. And I'm not sure it's ever been like that before.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we do every week on our podcast at C1 in the morning.
Picks for points, baby.
We do picks, and we've been off pretty much every time because the usual. I mean,
Yo, don't even look at me, bro. I was on my game the 2 weekends ago.
yeah, okay, but because the usual suspects can't be the usual suspects anymore because you have all this talent coming up that can pop off that weekend and take it down. And so it's hard to be like, oh, I know my top three, because when you have 10, 15 guys who can be that top three every week, it's impossible to make picks.
Yeah, I think
we have, but
the prime example is Sayananda.
Sayananda.
If you went back and I just pulled maybe 2 or 3, 4 other podcasts, right? Just throwing this out there, and very similar picks for points type series, not a single person had her on their radar. I picked her in our little, we call it a top 5 dark horse pick, where we kind of pick somebody that's maybe lower in the rankings that we think maybe will be able to show up that week. I picked her the weekend before, but she played lights out the entire weekend. I'm still completely stuck on her spin putt. One of the most beautiful spin putts that I see currently in the game. But that's like the most prime example of like if you go in, especially FPO, and you're picking your top three, and very 99.9% of people are going to pick Kristen, Paige, and Katrina. Those three, most likely.
which is correct.
Yeah.
Um, although I will tell you, and I'm going to be a bit of a fanboy here too, because I'm a huge Ella Hampton fan.
Mm-hmm.
As far as players, there's never been an FPO player that I enjoy watching play the game more, watching her throw. What she did at Waco, I mean, it's heartbreaking because all of
Yeah.
us empathize with the fact that that can happen.
Right.
And if we were to talk about FPO for a minute, she bogeyed, I believe, the last 3 holes at Waco.
Yeah, and it was obviously one of those things where she just hasn't been there before, and she couldn't
Yes.
handle the pressure, of, especially of someone like Kristen Tatar chasing her down. Like
Breathing
Yeah.
down her
it's
neck.
got to be
Oh,
scary.
the only one that is I think that you could look back on is hole 16. Hole 16 is not a hole you should bogey
Mm-hmm.
because there's a big landing area, and you know I think if she had to do it over again, I think she would take a more conservative approach. You live and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to speak for her, but my guess is she was in a really tough position when a player has a lead at the end of a tournament, which is, do you switch your game with the last few holes to play when you've been playing it a certain way that got you there?
Right.
And the answer is yes, you absolutely should switch. But does that mean it's easy to do? No, it's very difficult. So I think that she could have probably taken a more a conservative approach. But the thing about Waco is that both 17 and 18, you can play for par and bogey. Okay, this is not
Right.
a wide open 370-foot shot that, like, no matter what you do, if you throw through the big gap, you're going to par no matter what. It's not the way disc golf works now, and especially those are two of the best finishing holes in the game at a course that gets windy. There's no there are no guaranteed uh, pars on those 2 holes, and so those are just mechanical errors. No, I don't feel like there was bad decision making, but I think what is scary is I think everybody got a glimpse of what's coming.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think it's that's a scary prospect because she's got all the tools, and yeah, next time she's in that position, what happens is you recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a familiarity to it, and when it's familiar, even if you had a bad experience, the familiarity is better than the unknown as far as being able to be like, hey, I've seen this before. I know how this feels. Um, that approach shot she threw on 17
Yeah.
was a really good indication of how strong her mindset is, because that was the most clutch shot of the round. I mean, she didn't win, but for her to to put that under the basket from where she was, from out of bounds, with out of bounds in play in that situation, was like, I was like, I saw that and I went, I'm not worried about her at all. She's going to be just fine. And yeah, again, she'll be in that position again. And next time she's in that position, she's going to have a different result.
Yeah, you see it all the time with. I mean, I don't know how old Ella is, but I want to say young players, but even new players. I mean, even last year with Gannonberg going to the playoff at Vegas and just juicing that one shot that ended up costing them the win. Like, you just got to be there enough to understand, okay, well, I'm here now. This is what I need to do. And I can't choke it away like I did last time. I'm not going to choke it away because I'm more mature as a player.
I don't feel like I would say I don't feel like Ella didn't choke.
No, I'm not
Uh,
saying she did. I'm
no, no,
saying like an internal dialogue. If you're in that position, you would say like, I can't choke this away.
right. Yeah, no, I think the only thing Ella did, the only thing was that the decision to be a little too aggressive on 16. I think because that there's a large enough fairway where you could make the decision to be safe effectively 100% of the time, giving yourself a really difficult shot at birdie, but she didn't need a birdie.
Right.
Uh, I think my guess is that's probably the one that you look back on and say I could have chosen differently. But I think everything else was just. I mean, I saw her throw an 18, and the disc it flipped up a little bit too much. I watched her throw from the
Right.
round before, and she threw virtually the same shot. This one just got away. And by the way, I even want to point out the decision to go across the water. I was there last year at Waco, and we had a headwind on that hole, the first and the third round especially.
Mm-hmm.
And the big decision there was like almost nobody was going for birdie because of the headwind on that hole. It is not a guaranteed par to not cross the water. Like you're
Right.
risking putting it in the water, and if you take the water out of play, you're really far from the basket still. You still have like 300 some odd feet to go with the basket just past the water, like, and
Right.
you got a big landing area across the water. So I opted one of the rounds to throw across the water for par. And so that decision, I don't even second guess that decision. I think it was the right call. It just it didn't work. But she could have played safe. She could have changed her game at that point and thrown out of bounds or thrown her approach out of bounds. It's hindsight.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, as far as coming up, we have the Music City Open
Yeah.
coming up this
It's
weekend,
gonna be a good one.
and I mean, obviously, we'll be here on right afterwards to give you all the goings on of that.
We will be. We will be talking about Music City. Absolutely. And I only have a couple minutes. I have to check out of my hotel room. Remember how I said
Damn.
everyone follows the rules here? That that
Yeah,
includes
being on
being
time is one of those rules. 100%. 100%.
Well, yeah. For whatever reason,
but we'll,
your video decided to
Yeah, we got
mess
a
up on our
wonky
screen,
video
but
there
that's
at
all
the
right.
end.
We're
So
we're at the
everything
end
is
anyway.
like queuing for us to skate us on out. So
am I back on now?
Yeah, you're still here. It's just
you're
it got
good.
small on the screen for some
Oh,
reason
okay.
all of a sudden.
Yeah, no. So look, you guys, I have to call it. Normally I won't, but this time I do because um, we got to get on a train. We got to check out first, so
Right.
we don't break the rules, and then we got to get on a train. But
Awesome.
yeah, you guys, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, this is gonna
I'm,
be
I'm
awesome.
this is going to be great. Please post in the comments. One thing I'm curious about is when I'm an old man and I will get off topic at times. Please let me know in the comments if I get off topic and it diverges away from disc golf on this in non-disc golf areas. Please tell me if that makes you want to tune out or if you think that's fun because like us old people start stories and you like I don't even know where they're going to go when I start.
All right, that sounds good. So we will be back after the Music City Open. If
Yes,
you want, you can find Scott. Where can they find you, Scott?
just in social. Just search for my name on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. You'll find me. I got a new tutorial video up on YouTube about the two things that are causing you to not get snap. And then, of course, I advertise my 6-month online Become a Complete Disc Golfer class. During that, my teaching is kind of my thing. And ScottStokely.net is where you can buy the Tour Series Baobab. Not this stamp; it'll have a Tour Series stamp. But that's where you can get all the merchandise at my store. And yeah, that's all I'm plugging today. All of
Awesome.
something
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody. Like everybody said, leave some posts in the comments. Leave us a like. Give us a share. Throw
Give
us
us
up.
feedback.
Give us feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Everything's just going to get better, y'all. So stay prepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
And check me and Luke out at C1 in the morning. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, all those awesome places to go check that out. Other than that, appreciate it, y'all, and
Yeah.
have a good one.
See you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Scott.